Hey everybody, it's Megan Rohrer, and it's another episode of Church History That Liberates. And with me is
Pastor Susan Strouse. Hi, everybody.
Hey everybody, and we're here to talk a little bit about some history in the church that we think might help you out if there are people who say, we've never done it that way before. Because probably the church has done it that way before, right?
Could be.
Today I thought we would talk a little bit about, because we're probably right about the time when people are itching to make sure their particular Christmas tradition is the one Christmas tradition that is celebrated in the world. Although probably some of our listeners are laid back, but there might be some crabby people in church spaces saying, but we've never done it that way before. Right? So I thought we would talk about, Susan, when do you think the first Christmas carol was written in church history?
Oh, the first Christmas carol.
Very first Christmas hymn or carol.
We're not counting
the birth of Jesus.
We're not counting the Song of the Angels, right?
No, not the Magnificat, because that's written, right? Actual song.
Okay.
Sung in church.
I have no idea.
Bonus points if you know where. All right.
Don't know. South Dakota, 1893.
Wrong. Beyond wrong. The year 126.
Okay.
The Bishop of Rome.
Oh.
So, Roman practice, for what that matters.
Okay.
Very first known Christmas song sung in church, created in Italy, and most of our sort of time-honored, we've always done it that way, church rituals actually come from Italy. So I thought I would share with you one of the things that we did at my last congregation is our faith had grown a bit more progressive. For example, we in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, don't call the three kings a word that starts with O. It's implying that they are from Southeast Asia.
Oh.
But we don't use the O word because for the Asian Pacific Islanders in our region, that is considered to be a discriminatory word. So many of the hymns, see, we three kings of, we can't say the word. So we decided that we would change the words of some of our Christmas songs, which is hard to do if you are also a faith space trying to care about copyright rules. In a live stream age where some of the very Christmas songs you can't get the tune rights for if you change the words. So one of the things that we did, I talked a little bit about it in one of our other podcasts, is created something called like progressive hymns, if you want a book with all of the lyrics in it. And these are three that are from Christmas and Advent. I already talked about Magnificats in a previous episode, so I'll put a link to that if people want to talk about it. And I've started taking these hymns we wrote. I realized they were the perfect size for kids' books. Particularly, I don't know if you're like me, if you're in a small space where if one kid shows up, that one kid deserves a children's sermon, but you might not know when that one kid's going to show up. And so you can just kind of have a book that's about Advent in general to be able to read when that kid shows up. So it's about that length. And there are these kind of stunning artists who have made all of these really beautiful pictures that I thought were lovely to sort of put in them. So Just As Thou Art is to the tune of How Great Thou Art, a beloved song of yours, I know, Susan.
No.
Is it a beloved song of some of the people in your church, but you don't sing it because the words aren't? Don't agree. Just nod your head for those watching. Okay. So, but what if these were the words? The birth of God in a lowly manger brings hope to all who live in poverty. Born in Palestine, amid fear and anger, fled to Egypt as a refugee. Then from her soul, Mary starts to sing, pondering in her heart, Just as thou art. Then from her soul, Mary starts to sing, pondering in her heart, justice thou art. Now, I started that song too high. But what do you do, right? And then it goes on. Faithful astrologers from distant nations greet the babe with incense, gold, and myrrh. The bright north star lights Christ's ordination. The great rabbi, even death cannot deter, right? And I don't know if I can get you there, but it's going to go a little bit into some of our creeds. Tell me if this verse sounds a little bit Lutheran to you. Born this day, a peaceful reformation, and my life, may my life be God's hands and feet. Ever in my heart, a constant revelation that I will share when I meet Christ on the street. Right? And from her soul, Mary starts to sing, justice thou art. That's not so bad, right?
Well, you know what I like about that too. So it's not so much the words of how great thou art. It's that there's nothing in there about people.
Yeah.
That it's all of the wonder of the world and everything, but there are no people in there. So this one has people.
And it's about the purpose of the people.
Yeah,
Right? Justice thou art, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this next one, let's see. I wish y'all were watching on the YouTube version because I feel confident Susan's going to make a face again. This is Baby Jesus By and By to the tune of Sweet By and By. Is that you didn't make a face to that song?
No. I'm good. I'm not as crabby as you think I am.
Or I said you were going to make a face and then you control it. It's hard to know.
Nope. I'm good.
Well, we'll see. So I'll try to start lower. We'll see if this one works.
Depends how you sing it, though. We'll see how it goes.
There's a mother that's fairer than the day, magnified to bring forth God's holy name. Mary gave birth to Jesus in the hay, and the earth will never be the same. Born this day in a barn, unto us the Savior is born. Born this day in a barn, unto us a Savior is born. So the angel wakes, the angel wakes the shepherds that night and tells them to follow a star. In the deep darkness shone a great light, calling astrologers from the far. Born this day, right? It goes again. Christ Jesus in the manger he lay. Now, we're going to get very creedy with this one. Tell me if you know which creed this is. God of God.
Creepy. Oh, creedy.
No, creed. Creed.
Okay, got it.
Creed. Christ Jesus in the manger he lay, God of God, begotten, not made. He suffered, died, and rose on the third day. In the glory our debts he had paid. Athanasian. Athanasian. Nicene. So, it's a little bit Nicene, right?
Not mean. Begotten, not made.
Begotten, not made. It's just a way of, I always find that if you take something that's kind of old, like the tune, you can get away with a couple progressive words as long as you have a verse or two that reminds people of the words they all sort of said together. And so that's kind of the idea behind these songs that were updated. How would it go over, not your current space, in previous spaces, just rewriting the tunes of hymns? How would that go over? Did you ever have people who would say, no, we've never done it that way. You can't change the classics. We all know the words.
Yes, that has happened, especially at Christmas time.
I mean, I've never tried to change the words to Silent Night. That would not go over well. But
right, exactly. It's things like that. You don't mess around with those things. That even if we don't actually, believe the theology behind that or anything, but we're singing that carol. Yeah. Yeah, that's happened.
I think that's the hard thing to know about it is how do you have more progressive language? I mean, we know that the Zoroastrians, which were the people who came from afar, were faithful people who were astrologers, and that they practiced rituals that made them close to God in ways that were transgressive and wisdom inspired, and in ways that still are are kind of wellness lessons that are, I don't know how often you get to hang out with Zoroastrians, but if anyone does, probably Susan's one of those people.
Sometimes.
Right?
I've known a few in my day.
And so, like, I think part of that is now that we know more about different kinds of cultures,
Yeah.
and as words change, how do we be people who notice that words kind of change in the world? There are no, like, most of the Christmas carols we know and love are from the 50s or the 40s through the 60s, primarily not even written by Christians, which I think is delightful. And are songs that touch our heart because they've been a part of the rhythm of our world. But figuring out how we are to properly celebrate this time of year, there was a lot more freedom to create rituals back in the day, or to change songs back in the day. Mm-hmm. What would happen in your space if Mariah Carey showed up on Christmas Eve and sang "All I Want for Christmas Is You"? Positive thing, negative thing?
Yeah, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would go. Well, maybe. I would have to introduce it in a way that was, now what she's really singing about is Jesus.
Oh, okay. You'd have to describe what it is.
Still, I think, but we didn't like the short skirt and the low cut blouse and the tinsel. And I'm not thinking it's going to go.
Well, I want to give people permission to be able to celebrate in the ways that bring to life these stories today. The other fun fact is, when do you think the first nativity play happened in church history?
Are we talking about St. Francis?
Yeah, can you cheat a little because it's on the header? But yes, St. Francis.
St. Francis. Oh, I see it. I didn't see that.
Tell us what you know about St. Francis. Go for it.
I just know that he created the first nativity scene. That was something that he did. Yeah. I don't know the date. I'm terrible with dates. way back when.
In the 1100s, in the medieval time period, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea that you could have a play, and in St. Francis's community, y'all, all the parts were played by men, because that's who were the people who were around. Yeah. And so this idea that you could bring to life or see the nativity. This is a brand new nativity I just got. I found it at Ross Dress for Less.
Ooh.
And because we got an entirely Black nativity, which is not something that happens in most nativities that you can find. And so our home, we celebrate skin color appropriate Jesus imagery. And so that's something that we found for the first time this year. But I also collect nativities from around the globe. So the places where I've traveled around the globe to see what their nativities are. And these are some of my favorites, Susan. They're from Latin America, yes, Peru, and from Mexico. And this little one in the box, you open up and it looks like a small chest. You keep it closed until Christmas Day. And that's when you reveal Jesus, right? Yeah. So it's and then you leave it open through the entire season of Christmas. And then at Epiphany, then you put it away for the next year. This one from South America, much more intricate. There's lots of different rooms. They're having a full fiesta at this nativity, which I think is amazing. And this person over here is selling banjos and guitars at the original Christmas nativity, which I think is pretty cool.
It's not the little drummer boy for sure, huh?
Yep, selling hats over here and some masks. Here's the little donkey. But again, the same idea. You leave it closed, so it has doors that go in front of it, and the doors open on Christmas. And then that's when you get to see it. And so you put it up at the beginning of December as a closed box. So as Advent starts, it goes up as a closed box so that everyone in the family can anticipate the excitement of, oh, pretty soon we get to open that box. And on Christmas Day, you get to open it and reveal
There
it.
it is. Yeah,
Will you tell people
nice.
about, you have some beloved nativity figures. Will you tell people about yours?
I do. I haven't unpacked them yet, but they are salt glaze pottery, which is a salt glaze pottery comes from Germany, and actually in my own Pennsylvania, my Pennsylvania Dutch background, it's a pretty common kind of thing, and so I have a nativity set. So it's blue, and I'm thinking that if you have a black nativity or anything, I think maybe mine are from Avatar. They're blue. But they are blue salt glaze. So yes, I'm looking forward. And my ritual is that the Magi do not come onto the scene until Epiphany, and so the
Right.
Magi on when the whole thing goes up start on a totally different place of the room, usually up on some high place or something where they have room to move, so that every day during the Advent Christmas season they can travel.
They're like your elf on the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah, but no. So
Well,
they keep traveling. Yeah.
Because for those who maybe have only seen like Charlie Brown's version of the Nativity or the Nativity play that young children do in a church, because the stories it's a different story. Luke's gospel is about caring for the poor. And so this is a story of a poor family giving birth in a way that shows that they're of the people. And it's a story of struggle and journey. The story in Matthew's gospel is very centered in many of the things that happened to Moses. This is a story where they're going to flee to Egypt partway through, right? And I've been to the place in Egypt where the Holy Family is said to flee to, and it's across the street from the synagogue where Moses was, right? And so it's connecting Jesus in every way to the Moses story, but we have sort of crunched them together in our telling of them in order for the play to be shorter, right? And if you took the time frames and the names of the political leaders who are named, then the Magi would have come when Jesus was maybe 3 or 4 years old, not during the moment when Mary is giving birth.
Living in a house.
Right. Cave. It was,
yeah.
A cave house, right? And so these stories, interestingly enough, through the invention of having it become a play, becomes its own kind of news story, where I think more people know the Nativity play story than the Gospel of Luke nativity or the Matthew nativity story, or the Mark nativity story is a baptism when he's much older, and the John story is the story of the creation of the world from Genesis, right? And so these very different ways of coming at the same story, in the same way that my mom tells my birth story very differently than my dad tells my birth story, and very differently than a grandmother tells my birth story. And so it's very similar to that way of having many stories that are for a different purpose, right? And so I think not many people are given the permission to imagine the parts of the story that speak to you this year. Right? Sometimes we go to church and the pastor's expected to have this compressed story of there were sheep and shepherds and magi and all of these things. And some pastors have found ways to be like, this year I'm the shepherds, right? That I don't have to pretend they're all in the same story. Or this year I'm so people have found ways around this desire to compress it into one neatly compact story. But I want to give people permission, particularly if your family has been told that your family isn't one that is sacred or holy or is outside of what is acceptable in a church, then tell this Advent story from that perspective of Mary's family being one that was outside the rules and the norms of that church. Or if you are someone who has been lifted up by strong women leaders, then that's a story of Mary and Elizabeth being faith leaders when their husbands are not allowed to speak, right? Or if your story is one of discrimination and people being disappeared, then the story that you tell should be of the exile and of the persecution and of the dictators who slaughter, right? And if your story is one of hard work and overcoming, then by all means, a 3-day journey on a donkey, uphill both ways, right? So I want to give people permission to tell the story in a way that reflects your life and reminds your family that you are a part of this sacred genealogy. Because that's what I think communion's trying to do, is remind people they're part of this sacred bloodline. So if the way you tell the nativity story is different than the way Charlie Brown tells it, or different than the way the congregation across the street tells it, if that means that more people feel like they're a part of your family or the Holy Family, that's what I think the point is.
That's it. Yeah,
St.
absolutely.
Francis was all about caring for the poor. St. Francis was all about finding ways that people could serve their individual call and really live literally into those principles of God saying we must care for the poor. And so I want to say to you, if you are any of the people named in the Beatitudes, if you're grieving, if you're mourning, if you are weary, if you have been persecuted, if you are anyone who has been on the edges of church, that this is a story you can claim. Whether you do it through song, through carvings, through sculpture, through paintings, through nativity plays, use every creative means possible, because our church is richer when we do that. And you don't have to just live in Italy to be the first one to try something.
That's right. I like that.
Right? What kind of Advent and Christmas art inspires you the most in your personal kind of faith? Is it the Walgreens music?
Oh,
right. You're shopping at Walgreens. You got all that Christmas music going on.
You know, we talked the last time about stars. I mean, I always look for Christmas cards that have the Magi and a star, because to me that is just, and I love the Magi too, because they were boundary crossers, right? Going from one religion to another, not saying, oh, you have to do it this way or you have to believe that way. No, they came bringing their gifts to give, and I love that. And Jesus became a boundary crosser as well. So I think that's what I love about that story. But I also love the shepherds, because the shepherds were these lowly, you know, nobodies. They were the nobodies out in the field that nobody cared about. And yet who were the ones that the angels came to first? So it's about us. It's about all of us lowly people. So those are my two favorite.
One year at a congregation where I served, we had a giant yard, and they had never had an outdoor nativity before. And there was a lot of street traffic. There was much more street traffic than people who ever went inside this building. And so I thought, let's get a big enough nativity that people will look at it, right? Good, bad, or ugly, people will look at it and they'll notice this building exists. There'll at least be something different in the yard, so people will know we still exist as a congregation. And so I sculpted, this isn't for everyone, but I sculpted life-size nativity out of chicken wire and paper mache. And in the nativity, Mary holds Jesus, but Jesus isn't attached. So Joseph also got to hold Jesus sometimes. And for people in the congregation, they had never seen Joseph hold Jesus, and it was very helpful. For the second Sunday after Christmas, Jesus became a toddler. So Jesus grew in size, as showing how old he was when the stories were happening. And this congregation had an infant care center. So watching Jesus learn to crawl and then be able to stand up for the first time was very moving for people who were in the congregation. And for the shepherds, we made them Palestinians, right? Because color and robes and so to have this idea of different types of people from the Holy Land being called to come together, right? that speaks a message. And instead of just Zoroastrians, for the wise people, we had interfaith leaders. So a Buddhist would come and celebrate, but not interfaith leaders that would feel like their religion was slighted in any way if they encountered Jesus. So it was a Buddhist who cared about bodhisattvas and believed that there could be lots of Buddhas that come into different kinds of people. A Hindu who believes that lots of types of religions can come together, right? And so this idea of seeing the wise people from afar as an interfaith conversation, or seeing it as a way that wise people, like, we need reflection from outside community, basically, was like, we've been telling this nativity a long time, but what feedback do we need from outside communities, right? And this idea that Jesus went through the same stages as us, that Joseph exists in a loving human way. There's very very few paintings of Joseph ever holding, we had Joseph's arm around Mary, like he was actually touching her and caring about her, which is radical for people who always saw them never touching, right? And to see them as embodied people who cared about each other in ways that look like a contemporary family. And it was not perfect by any means, because painting something that can be seen from far away in a large yard is very different than when you want to come up close and look at a wax statue at Madame Trousseau's, right? And so, and then we added animals, and the different animals that we added, and the animals would get hidden around the church space, and people would be like, where's the fox? And they'd look for the fox each year. And each year they could be in a different space. We had to bring them inside, because in San Francisco, it rains a lot during the same time of Advent. And so people were very sad at the idea that the paper mache would fall apart. And so it just added to a lot of diversity. And it kind of came out of this idea in me that many of the giant nativities in congregations are a little bit racist, where the only people of color are the people coming from afar, or the magi.
And only one of them usually.
And only one of them, just poor Balthazar. And so to think about what are the ways that our understand, we know more about cultures now, so we can make the nativity look like someone who lives in the Middle East. We can make the shepherds look like they're from the Middle East. We can do this, right? We can know this is a story that's for us, with more than just making the people look like us. And so I think anything that helps have those conversations in community helps kind of bring this spirit alive.
Totally. I happen to think that the Christmas story, the nativity story, is an archetypal kind of story, that you don't have to be Christian to know that this is an important story. And so to include the Buddhists and the Muslims and everyone there is great. And I love to tell the story in that way. And there's so many wonderful parts to it that talk about, even Joseph as the father figure, and the magi and the shepherds and even the angels, and the whole thing, I just think is a very universal story, that if we tell it in a way that people can really relate to it, that we're all part of this story, even if you're not saying that, yes, I'm a Christian and I accept Jesus as begotten, what was the creed thing, begotten, not made, and everything. Don't worry about that, but that you're part of this God story. That's really pretty wonderful, that idea of wonder that comes into to this season, those stars, looking at Martin Luther, looking up at the stars to the trees, or the Magi following that star. Let's not take that as a literal story of, how did that happen? We can't figure that out. How that couldn't happen. Don't worry about that. Maybe it did. Don't worry about that. That's not what it's about. It's about the mystery and the wonder of it all.
Historically, many parts of the way the story was written are formulas of, here's how you tell the story of a really great person. It starts with a birth like this. And you can find a lot of ancient stories that begin with a similar nativity. And you could almost change out the name and get many stories that are the same. And that's not me saying I think Jesus is not important, right? It's my way of saying that I think the more we name the worldliness of the way the story was told by people way back in history, maybe the more we can care about our neighbors and love our interfaith friends and siblings who have many similar stories we could learn from, and have fuller holiday times and fuller conversations about what is sacred and godly without deflating any of our own faith, but by enhancing our neighbors.
That's right. Absolutely. Amen to that.
Well, thank you to anyone who's listened through all of this. We know it's a choice, not an obligation to listen all the way to the end.
But you really want to.
If you were waiting for us to give you permission to do something or another, and we forgot to give you that permission, consider yourself full of that permission in this moment.
Go do it.
Right? Live Advent and Christmas in a way that makes the sacred present for you and for your community and for your family. And if there are bits of the story that have wounded you in the past, it's fine to take a step back from those parts of the stories and lean into other parts.
Absolutely.
Through songs, through candles, through twinkling lights, or whatever silent night version you prefer.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.